Alrighty. Good evening, folks. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, mate. I think it's just we've had so much weather and there just hasn't been a break. You know, we've had. Normally, what happens is we go through a period of really bad weather, and then I get a couple of weeks just to sort of relax a little. Well, not relax. Like I still work, but there's not as much video forecasting to do for the members. So normally it gives my voice a bit of time to recover. But mate, this season has just been non-stop. It's just been non-stop action, left, right, and centre. If it's not in the east, it's in the north. If it's not up in the Darwin area, it's over in the west. Mate, it's just been crazy. It's just been hectic. Certainly been one of the most active wet seasons I can remember. Look, in terms of on-the-ground rainfall, look, sure, maybe it hasn't been the biggest wet season, but my God, has it been active. And has it been active, Australia-wide? Pretty crazy stuff. All right, folks, good morning. Good morning. That's where my brain's at. Just been at a pool party. If you're not doing Australia Day at a pool party, there's something wrong with you. Unless you're playing cricket. You can play cricket, or unless you're in the Kimberley and you're getting pissed down rain on. So they're your excuses for not being at some sort of party for Australia Day. All right, my name's Chris Nitso, lead forecaster at Weather IQ. Our major sponsor on the top left there, Fair Dinkum Builds. We thank them for their sponsorship. And if you would like to and in the market for it, check them out for a shed. Now remember, folks, we have a subscription service, weatheriq.com.au/subscribe on the top right of your screen there. And we're not funded at all by government. We don't get any sort of grants, any sort of rubbish like that. So we're totally reliant on people's support. And it costs $32.95 and you get a bunch of forecasts every single day of the wet season. If you have a look at what we did for the subscribers today, give you a quick look at what we did for them. Where was it? Blog. Yep, there we go. All right, for today, what did we do for them? We gave them a PM update to tell them exactly what to expect over Broome and Derby. Gave them a North Oz Tropics watch looking at the threats over the next couple of weeks for the Australian tropics. We did a very early morning update for the Broome and Derby folk, again, letting them know what they were in for this cyclone for every step of the way. No surprises, because there ain't nothing good about surprises in a cyclone, I always say. So you got to know what's coming. Queensland Weather Week, looking at the week ahead and the big rain coming for North-East Queensland from Townsville northwards, and all the big rain on the west coast and all the big rain across the northern interior. Lots going on across North Queensland over the next week. That'll be a main topic of discussion tonight once we've dealt with the cyclone. We looked at the Gulf and the Cape specifically. We looked at the Cairns region and talked about the heavy rain coming there tonight. We looked at the Townsville region and talked about the heavy rain coming there tomorrow night, or tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow night. We looked at Mackay and southern Queensland. Not much going on down there. Maybe a few storms there tomorrow. But they're the things we talked about today. And each day we talk about those specific areas. So if you'd like to support us, it's $32.95. It's not going to break your bank. And we go through in depth with all that stuff. So thank you very much for those of you that do support us. I'll just read your questions at the end. I know there's people asking questions already. I'll just get to those at the end. We've got a fair bit to cover, eh? And I am losing my voice a little bit, so we do need to be mindful of how long this takes. All right, so looking firstly at the Broome area and Derby. They're the most important thing tonight, but obviously we need to talk about massive rain for North Queensland coming. All right, so looking here, the cyclone hit the coastline, Category 2, hit the coast around Beagle Bay at 2 p.m. We'll just go back to landfall so you can see where it is and how it operated. So there's the cyclone. Now, by the way, when we talk about landfall, for those of you wondering, it's not when the edge, see the edge of the eye right there on your screen? It's not when the edge of the eye hits the coast. It's when the centre of the centre hits the coast, as best as we can guess it. All right, so the centre of the centre hits the coast probably around, maybe 2 p.m., 1:30, something like that. Probably based on satellite imagery, maybe very close to 2 p.m. All right? So, by the way, next time someone shows you a thing and says, the cyclone's landfalling, It's not landfalling until the centre of the centre gets there, not when the edge of the centre gets there. All right, so just a technical definition there. Right, from there, the system has continued to move in an east-southeast direction. It's expected to move in a more southeast direction, and it's slowing down. So this means that we're going to see ongoing effects through Derby all night tonight. We're going to see big effects developing through Broome once the system moves in a more southerly direction. All right, so that's where we're anticipating here some heavy rain on the east and west side of the circulation and eventually the south side of the circulation. There's a lot of rain with this system, a lot more than, say, the last cyclone that hit the Kimberley. I think it was Iggy, I think it was called. Just quickly scooted across, gave a couple of folks 100 mils of rain, and that was it. So this one, you can see here that we're anticipating some very heavy falls of rain through the next 24 hours. So looking at where that rain's going to occur, the heaviest falls over the next few hours are going to be south of Derby, with heavy rainfall anywhere in the yellow area. All right, the heaviest falls expected to be south of Derby, but heavy rain everywhere in the area. That's between now and 2 a.m. in the morning. As we continue through time, we can see that between 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. we've got a system that continues to track southwards, heaviest rainfall on the south side of the circulation, and in feeder banding coming in between the monsoonal westerlies and this southerly or southwesterly fairly stable airstream that comes in. These two air masses hate each other with a passion, and that's why we see this very heavy rain back through the coastline. A lot of the time when we see Kimberley cyclones and even certainly Pilbara cyclones, there's not too much on the backside of them. This one's got a fair kick on the backside of it. All right, so those folks in Broome who think, oh yeah, it's just gone through and nothing's happened, it's going to happen for you, but it just might take a little bit more time. So just don't rest and don't think that the whole thing's over for you just yet. As we go into 2 p.m, you can see the system continues to track southwards, heaviest rainfall southern side. Showers and thunderstorms continue in that monsoonal air mass. 2 p.m. to 8 p.m, we're watching a thin strip of strong storms developing on the western side, close to the coast, close to Broome. We're seeing heaviest rainfall contracting further south of the circulation, or to the south of the circulation, and into the northern interior and maybe the far northeastern parts of the Pilbara. Moving beyond this time frame, we still see that thin strip of rainfall around Broome, and we see the very heavy falls of rain to the south of the circulation. Rightio, so as we continue here, we can see that those showers and thunderstorms continue into potentially Monday morning. Monday, we're going to see a sharp decrease in convective activity through the area, and that should be all she wrote. The monsoon contracts back to the north, and we're seeing North Kimberley thunderstorms for an extended period of time there, and that's where all of the rain will contract. So the good news there for Broome and Derby, once you get through this next 24 hours, there's not going to be too much there to sink your teeth into with regards to follow-up rain. There are some signs of a new tropical cyclone signal in 10 to 15 days' time, but listen, let's get through this one, and then we can start talking about that one in a few days, eh? So that's the expectation through here from a rainfall perspective. Now let's talk about winds. Winds are going to be interesting. These little winds, they're going to stick around for a little while here. The system's not going to weaken very quickly. So looking at our wind gusts. So far, when I had a look at the Bureau of Meteorology's latest weather observations, yep, there they are. Let's see if we can refresh that. Last I checked, there was 100 and something kilometres an hour coming at Lombardina. Yeah, there it is, 106. So it was 102 last I checked. So 106 k's an hour has been the maximum recorded at Lombardina. So that's a 57 knot gust at 4:48 p.m, so 6:48 p.m. Queensland time. And you can see that they're getting solid Category 1 winds. Category 1 winds are 63 kilometres and above. All right. So those ones, those winds are, so far we haven't seen anything above Category 1 and sort of low to moderate end. But then again, this cyclone hasn't actually moved over the top of a recording station. So it makes sense that we haven't really probably got a recording station that's seen the worst of the system. So the fact that we got solid Category 1s at Lombardina, and Lombardina was quite a few kilometres to the north of this, means that, yeah, there's a fair likelihood that the system might have been producing Category 2 winds on landfall. All right, so that's our max gust. So far for Broome, our max gust has been about 70-something kilometres an hour, yeah, 76 at the port, and about 65 at the actual township. And obviously Derby's the big watch point at the moment. East-northeasterlies, and they keep increasing. So you can see they're 67 kilometres an hour, and that was only at 7 p.m. Queensland time. So that was very recent. And I would suspect for Derby, their biggest winds, and we'll talk about it shortly, are going to be when these winds turn more northerly. At the moment, they're a little bit sheltered from an east-northeasterly because it's coming over land. And I'll show you what I mean. Actually, I'll show you what I mean now. We'll get into it. All right, so we're going to zoom into these two areas. These are our two areas that we're watching, right? Derby and Broome. So as we go into 5 p.m, we can see that 5 p.m. 5 p.m. WA time, should be seeing Derby beginning to see a bit of a northeasterly, gusting up to about 50 knots or so. So at the moment, we're probably just shy of that. So we're not quite hitting the mark there with regards to our strongest winds at the moment. Now, as we go into 8 p.m, this is where I think Derby might hit the mark. So as the cyclone moves to the southeast, likely to their west, now it could be within sort of 50 k's of that. It's not guaranteed to be right there, but within 50 k's of that. The idea will be that as these winds turn more northerly to northwesterly, this is a real chance for Derby to now pick up their strongest winds. And why? Because if we take a look at the way Derby's structured and what's around Derby, you can see that they're sheltered from the northeast. All right, they've got land masses here that are going to shelter them a little bit when the winds are more northerly or northeasterly. So, yeah, theoretically, they should be getting 50 to 60 knot winds, and they're not. But there's theory and then there's practice. Because you're sheltered, you're not going to achieve that wind speed quite as sharply as what is being reflected there. Now, they're no longer sheltered once the cyclone moves to their southwest. So this is when Derby starts to pick up its strongest winds. All right, so that's over the next few hours, folks. I'd be anticipating Derby to pick up the strongest winds. And then those winds are going to remain strong through the night because our cyclone slows down. So it slows down because it's getting ready for a turn to the south. And the expectation here is 50 to 60 knot winds, probably more so 50 knot wind gusts are expected around Derby. So basically low-end Category 1 winds are likely around Derby. Now, while I've been gibbering about Derby, you would have noticed Broome, something changed in Broome. Did you see what it was? I'll just play the animation. Have a look at what's happened to Broome. Right, did you see something changed? The big change for Broome is that the winds turned from southeasterly, which shelters the township a little bit, doesn't shelter the port, but shelters the township a little bit. And then they turned very similar to the way the winds turned in Derby. They came straight off the water in the next few hours for Derby. They're going to start coming straight off the water for Broome overnight tonight, early tomorrow. So Broome will start to see its strongest winds overnight tonight, early tomorrow, well after the system has crossed the coast. All right, so this is important for Broome folks to understand because they'll look at the cyclone being that far away from them and think, nothing to see here. The problem is you think that and then suddenly, bang, you get hit. And remember, you're going to be on that western side where these drier southerlies are going to take on these more monsoonal westerlies, and that's going to create very strong potential thunderstorms in this western coast region. So that's another added thing that you've got to take into account here. And you can see Broome's actually getting stronger winds than Derby through most of the day tomorrow. So Derby's winds settle down by the time you're waking up. Broome's winds don't settle down by the time you're waking up. Broome's winds are getting started overnight and then they're continuing through much of the day until after lunchtime. All right, so very, very, very significant that we understand the difference in the way the winds are coming in and how they make us feel on the ground and what effects they have on our structures, on our trees, on all of that stuff. So understand that when we're getting winds directly off the ocean, we're really hammering directly into the township. When we're getting them over land, they tend to be gusty and fluctuate a fair bit, and the overall wind speed tends to be lower. So expect Derby to get its biggest winds in the next few hours. Expect Broome to get its biggest winds overnight and through the morning hours of tomorrow beyond lunchtime. Beyond that, folks, just a quick one just to show you where this thing's going longer term. Unfortunately, we were really, really hoping against hope that it might move into South Australia. It doesn't look like it's going to do that, unfortunately. At this stage, we anticipate that the system will move south. Not going to give any rain to the Pilbara, just a couple of gusty storms around Headland today. Maybe another couple of gusty storms around Headland tomorrow. There they are there. See those? Tomorrow again in the afternoon. But overall, not going to give any significant rain to the Pilbara. From here, we're going to see the system tracking in a general southerly direction. A bit of an upper trough tries to grab it. See that? Ooh, and it gets so close to pushing into South Australia, but the upper trough dies at the last moment. And so rather than being able to push all that rain across into South Australia, it sort of duck dives down into the Southern Ocean, unfortunately, and it misses a large chunk of areas that really need it, and it falls in a very arid area here where, you know, we couldn't care less if it rains or not for a lot of this region. It's just so arid. So the idea here, unfortunately, is that we miss out on getting some decent rain through the South Australian region, folks. It's, yeah. All right, let's have a look now at, that's it for the WA system, all right? I think I've clarified what we're expecting there. This is total accumulated precipitation estimates. You can see our heaviest rainfall likely between Broome and Derby, with falls in excess of 100 millimetres when all is said and done, still to come for these areas. The idea is, though, that significant rainfall will be produced further southwards and down towards the Nullarbor Plains as well. So, you know, it's going to be a fairly widespread rain producer. Unfortunately, the folks who are crying out for rain over here are going to miss it completely. But anyway, there's another chance there in 10 to 15 days. There's a new little cyclone signal out there, which we won't discuss tonight because I'll lose my voice if I do, but something to pay attention to maybe in the next few times we do one of these updates. We'll start looking at whether or not that cyclone signal solidifies longer term. For now, this is what we're dealing with. Right, let's get over to Queensland. Queensland looking like a very interesting little time for North Queensland, that's for sure. Now, I need to preface this and tell you why this has suddenly turned a lot more interesting for North-East Queensland. And one of the key reasons here is, we've been talking about it for a while, I think. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure we have. We've been talking about it for a while. There's a little low southeast of Willis Island. Now, that low is finally buggering off, all right? That low is finally going out here to the east. Now, you wouldn't think about it, but this low has been stopping us from getting a shit ton of rain on northeast Queensland. So this low moving away will now allow a moisture flow into the northern parts of Queensland. Now, this is really important. This is going to result in heavy, heavy rainfall. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get over here and have a chat about where this low is, because we need to understand where this low is to understand the complexities of the next few days of rain across northeast Queensland and the northwest coast of Queensland. By the way, you can see some nice little gusty thunderstorms across western and southern Queensland as well. Not a hell of a lot of rain with them, but some pretty gusty winds, no doubt. Right, let's get up here into Kowanyama. I want to have a look at Kowanyama, just to show you where the low is and to get you to understand the complexity of what we're dealing with in the next few days. All right, so our low is now inland. Oops, what am I doing there? All right, we don't want that. Right, our low is now inland of the coast. It's southeast of Pomperour. It's on the northern edge of this. See this big flare-up, this big cloud flare-up of convection? So it's on the northern edge of that. So it's just inland. It's moved about 20 kilometres all day. It hasn't moved anywhere, but it is inland. So what does this do? It complicates the forecast because I'll show you why. I'll show you that one later. This one's the one I want. All right, so it complicates the forecast because it means that whatever's here is going to be very weak now. What that does is it means that if something's going to be weak here, the atmosphere is going to look to try and take advantage of that somewhere else. So if there's going to be a weak circulation here around the Gulf of Carpentaria or the far northern inland, the atmosphere is also going to try and develop potentially weak circulations off the east coast. This is what happens in these setups. Often happens. Almost always happens, in fact. We get a circulation that develops here, becomes weaker than expected, and then suddenly, before you know it, over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 days, you're developing weak little eddies all over the east coast of Queensland. And so this presents a problem from a forecasting perspective because it creates a highly variable rainfall situation for the northeast. Not the northwest. We know the northwest here is going to cop it. All right? This part of the forecast absolutely set in stone. All right? No doubt whatsoever. This part of the forecast isn't set in stone. All right, we know that there's going to be some heavy rain. How heavy? Is it a few hundred millimetres? Is it closer to a metre over the course of the week? Is it maybe only 200 millimetres? Right, so this creates complexity where a system that would have been stronger out here in the Gulf of Carpentaria wouldn't have created a situation for these eddies because it would be strong enough to drive that entire easterly flow into itself. All right, and all of this wouldn't be disturbed. It would just be coming directly into a stronger circulation. Because this is now weak, the convergence is a little bit weaker, sure, but it offers us up opportunities to see new rotational patterns close to the northeast coast. And that, my friends, complicates everything for the northeast coast. And it could result in much heavier rainfall than what's been currently predicted by most modelling. So let's have a look at how this plays out, our best guess. And it is a guess because it is a difficult scenario now with no dominant low pressure system over the course of the week. We've been going at this from an idea and a perspective that this Gulf flow is going to dominate everything. It's no longer going to be the case because we can see it's overland. It's not going to be as dominant as we predicted it to be. As I say, the understanding then changes our understanding of what's going to happen in northeast Queensland. It actually makes it more likely that northeast Queensland gets a hell of a lot more rain from this now. All right, so let's go through this. I want to try and get Townsville's probably the southern edge, so I want to see if we can get an overlay that gets all this rain out here, but also gets Townsville on that southern edge without losing a lot of our rain in the Cape. All right, I think that's our best. That's our best sort of. That's our best overlay there, I think. So let's have a look at how this operates, eh? Right, now remember, this is all made possible by that one thing I told you about the Coral Sea. This thing here, buggering off. Remember, this has been the blocker. This is the blocking low. This is the low that's been stopping us from getting pummeled today. Normally, in this setup, we would have started to get absolutely pummeled on that northeast coast, all right? So because this low has been sticking around, it's been creating all of that rain out to sea. That's going to break down and move eastwards. So that will then allow the flow to come onto the coast. That happens from tomorrow. This isn't something that's happening 5 days out, all right? So for those of you that were planning to go out on the water tomorrow afternoon, night, have an all-nighter for Australia Day, nah, forget it. That plan's gone. Find something else to do. All right, so here we go. We've got this low pushing away to the east. There it is, getting out past Vanuatu, drifting southwards, coming back at us, but coming back at us as a trough. Okay, so nothing there longer term. But the fact that this goes away opens the floodgates. Let's have a look at those floodgates. Okay, so tonight, we're expecting to see some heavy falls of rain in that Port Douglas, Daintree area, and we're expecting to see heavy falls of rain exactly where they're happening. Yep, right in there. So you can see the model absolutely picture perfect. And where's the heavy rain on this section of coastline? Yep, right over Port Douglas. Absolutely perfect modelling. All right, so as we continue, since it's got it right so far, we've got a fairly good confidence that at least for the next 24 to 36 hours, it's going to get it close to right, okay? If it was getting it all over the shop to start with, we couldn't use it. So it's got it right to start with. Let's move on with it. As we go into the overnight time frame, you can see this heavy rain spreading from Cooktown down to Cairns as we go through the night. You can also see this heavy rain spreading eastwards, and we actually develop a bit of a feeder band that joins up through the Coral Sea. So this is all rainfall coming down from the north. Here's where things get tricky. Our low buggers off overnight tonight out to the east. Remember that other low, not the one that we're looking at in the Gulf, the other low. Don't get confused. It confuses me sometimes because there's so many freaking lows this season. All right, so this low is still here around the coastline, just inland of, but that other low going out towards Vanuatu, it's going to start accelerating eastwards overnight. As we go into tomorrow, we see tomorrow morning we're waking up to some heavy falls of rain from the Daintree south to about Tully, with the heaviest falls likely to be in between the Daintree and Innisfail. We're also waking up to heavy falls of rain northeast of Normanton and through the northern interior. We're also starting to see a few showers developing on the Herbert, Burdekin coastline. And this is where the alarm bells start going, because up until now, there was no rain down there because of our little blocking low, the low that was blocking the flow. So once we get this rain developing in the Herbert region, we then bring down that convergence zone into the Herbert region. So now tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow during the day, we see heavy rain setting in between Tully, potentially Townsville, certainly Tully, Ingham, Rolling Stone, but potentially the model here telling us it might extend down towards Townsville and Alva Beach area, the sort of northern Burdekin region. Notice it doesn't extend a long way west to Charters Towers. Charters Towers is getting a bit of light stuff. You can also see heavy rain continues here in the Gulf, but notice that it's not quite as heavy and it's not quite as widespread. And that's because our low, because it's over land, isn't the dominant force we thought it would be. All right, so as we go through, as we move into Sunday afternoon, evening, our heaviest falls of rain likely in the Herbert Burdekin at this point. Some showers and possible thunderstorms continue for the North Tropical Coast, and we see heavy rainfall through the northern interior. Notice that on the western side of our Gulf low, there's not a hell of a lot of rain going on. Moving through into 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. on Monday, we see heavy rainfall between Cairns and Rolling Stone. So notice there that it moves a little bit further north. Yeah, so that convergence zone moves a little bit further north, more towards the Herbert River and Kasserine Coast, at least southern Kasserine Coast, as we go into Monday morning. And Monday during the day, we see our heaviest rainfall from about Babinda south to Townsville, with a real heavy patch between Tully and Rolling Stone. That's our heavy rain for Monday morning. On Monday, now notice our heavy rain in the Gulf. See how it's dropped off? See, there's not as heavy anymore through here. So that's because our Gulf low is not as strong as it was supposed to be, all right? Because it's over land, it's not over water, it's not commanding the respect of the atmosphere around it that it was commanding when we were looking at this a few days ago. All right, so now this offers us up opportunities for the atmosphere to do its thing over the northeast and really focus its energy and focus its rainfall into the northeast. So there's been a sharp increase in rainfall in the northeastern parts of the state over the course of the last 12 to 24 hours. We're seeing that on model by model. As we continue on Monday night, we see the area of heavy rain begin to contract northwards now into the Herbert and Kasserine region, and then from there, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, you can see here that we're getting new heavy rainfall development through the Gulf country, through the northern interior, and heavy rainfall contracting away from the Herbert Burdekin and up to the NTC. And longer term, we see some extreme rainfall potential for the NTC, and we see heavy falls of rain redeveloping around the Gulf country and up in Cape York Peninsula. We're expecting to see a fairly significant little monsoonal surge line pushing up through the Torres Strait as we go through Tuesday, Wednesday, and that will coincide with this increase in very heavy rainfall for the Gulf country and the Cape York Peninsula wider region as well. So this is going to be a sizable rain event now. This was looking at being, 200 to 300 millimetres for the week. Not too bad, right? We've now probably gone and even tried to double that for parts of this NTC region. So this is a big rain event for the NTC. I need to very much stress this. It's not just your typical couple of wet days. All right, so as we go through, we can see total accumulated rain between now and when this whole thing's over Friday. And remember, this is a smooth model approach. We can see that areas north of Rolling Stone are the ones that we're particularly interested in. And to be perfectly honest, probably north of Ingham. But certainly for the next 24 to 36 hours, we can see that there's enough interest there for us to sort of peak our interest as far south as Townsville, and maybe even as far south as the northern Burdekin. But the real stuff over multiple days is happening further north between Cooktown and Ingham, all right, and with that real focal point between the Daintree and the Kasserine coastlines, which includes Cairns. And you can see there, heavy falls of rain still to come. Now listen, these folks in here have had 1 to 200 mils already. So they've had out of the 3 to 5 that they were expecting, they've already had 1 to 2, all right? So now they're getting another 2 to 3, all right, over the course of the next week. And you can see that extends to areas just north of Georgetown. The good news here is we're not extending it southward, so we're not bringing it down to what's the highway? The Flinders Highway. we're keeping it north of the Flinders Highway. All right, at least there's a bit of silver lining there for those folks who have just copped that massive flood in the last month or so. So there is a little bit of good news there. We're not seeing any evidence of that heavy rain, that extreme rain slipping south. Right, let's have a look at some of our other computer models. Look, they're all going to be a little bit different, but they're all going to show something relatively similar, I would suspect. Yeah, you can see there the UK Met model stops the heaviest rainfall just south of Tully around Cardwell. And you can see, once again, numbers around the 400 to 500 millimetre range between now and Friday, all across that northeast coastline. You can see 1 to 300 still to come for the Gulf, the northern Gulf, and up into the Cape York Peninsula, especially with that next big surge of monsoonal winds midweek next week through there. The Euro model over the course of this next little period showing us probably a little bit underestimative. And this is one of the problems I have with the Euro model. It's very good at predicting this rain over inland areas. It's very poor at predicting this rain over coastal regions. It really does suck. Sorry for the non-scientific terminology. It is very, very poor at predicting orographic lifting rainfall across northeast Queensland's coastal ranges. And we see it every time we have, or not every time, almost every time that we have a rain event. The Euro model is almost always about 50, maybe 75%, if it's lucky, of the actual rainfall that we actually receive. So I would be doubling these numbers to get a truer representation of what you can expect over the course of the next week or so. It gets a little bit more accurate once we get down into the Townsville district, but it's not very accurate once we get north of Ingham at all. So take that with a grain of salt. Expect much more than what's being predicted here. Not for the inland areas, though. Those inland numbers look pretty solid, okay? We're just talking about the northeast coast and the adjacent ranges. So that's that one. Icon model, probably usually a bit underrepresentative as well. No, it's got the 2 to 300, but this only takes us out to Wednesday night, Thursday morning. I'm not even looking at the GFS. It usually gets it wrong anyway. And the Bureau of Meteorology model over the course of the next little while is, yeah, probably, once again, between now and Friday night, you can see, once again, probably a touch underrepresentative of what I'm expecting through this area. And the last one, and not least, is the GFS AI model, which we can use over the next 7 days. Yeah, that's better. You can see the GFS. I think the AI models are onto this, and I think the high-res model, if we take a look at the high-res model, this is just the next 2 days, the high-res model's all over this as well. So we can see here, forecast ground radar indicating, I'm hoping it shows. Why are we not? Yep, there we go. Just takes a little bit of time to load because it is a high-res model. But you can see there, the forecast ground radar indicates heavy rainfall through Port Douglas, setting in through the Cairns district overnight tonight as well, into tomorrow morning. You can see new convective bands coming down from the south. And this is the little alarm bell. You can see the little showers. You wouldn't think much of them tomorrow morning around the Townsville district. Very, very light. But this signifies the start of our convergence. Before, it was just the low causing the rain. Now, this means that the southeasterlies are getting involved. And once the southeasterlies getting involved, this is going to take on a whole new level of intensity when it comes to rainfall potential. And that's going to start happening from around about lunchtime or early to mid-afternoon tomorrow. And you can see there some very heavy falls, particularly north of Townsville, Rolling Stone northwards at this stage. But look, Townsville's going to be on the southern boundary of that. So please, please, please take this into consideration when you're doing your travelling over the next few days. There is going to be a significant amount of rain through this area. I'm anticipating 1 to 200 mils already by probably 2 days' time. So this is taking us out till Monday morning. Maybe give that till Monday afternoon, Monday evening, but I would be expecting at least a couple of 100 mils on a large chunk of this coastline by, say, Monday night, even Tuesday morning. And then beyond that, remember, we contract that rain from the Rolling Stone, Ingham area, and we contract it north to the North Tropical Coast region. And then she's on for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all through this region. And then I think by Friday, we're going to start to see a bit more of a clearance to the north and just a general settling down of things. But that's a solid week of rain here, and that's a solid opportunity to see multiple hundreds of millimetres on this northeast coast. And it all comes from that low near Willis Island finally buggering off and allowing the easterly flow to come in and take on the monsoon. The monsoon was just getting it all its own way. The easterly coming in now, is putting up a bit of a fight against it, and the monsoon's going to come up with that fight somewhere between the Daintree and Townsville, and it's going to absolutely smack them. Now, the other thing it's going to do while it's smacking them with rain is it's also going to increase the winds. And we've got to be careful here that we're not just boating because we see a model and it tells us that we're getting 5 knots, all right? Because I'm telling you right now, once this monsoon starts to smack this easterly, it's going to cause all sorts of little rotational eddies out here, and it's going to cause all sorts of areas of very significant winds south of the battle zone. So the battle zone, wherever it is, so it'll be chopping and changing day to day, even hour to hour. So the battle zone might start up here around Cooktown, which I think it does, yeah. So the battle zone starts up around Cooktown tonight, you can see, and that's why we're getting all that heavy rain around Port Douglas and the Daintree. And so this area sees an area of enhanced winds. So our winds are going to be highly complicated here as this monsoon takes on the easterly flow. This is not a time you want to be braving the waters, certainly not in the Herbert Burdekin tomorrow, with that real potential for that development of that convergence, that first initial development of convergence in that Ingham coastline from lunchtime or sort of early to mid-afternoon tomorrow. So it's not something you want to be taking on. And you can see the difference, and I'm going to zoom us into Cairns there just to give you an idea of why I gibber about this so much, because this is how boaties who think they know it all find themselves in a world of hurt, because they go out and it starts out at 5 knots, and it is 5 knots until it's not, and suddenly it's 35 to 40 knots. All right, and the difference here between 5 knots and 35 to 40 knots is 8 to 10 kilometres. All right, how are you as a boatie going to know that 35 to 40 knots isn't going to ravage you? All right, you just can't. It's just not worth the risk. Unless your livelihood depends on it, it's just not worth the risk to be out there when this sort of mess is going on. Alrighty, folks, that's where I am with this stuff. So we talked about the Gulf flow. No real sign of intensification. We're not interested in that one as a cyclone. We're just interested in the rainfall it's going to provide for the Cape and the Gulf region. And then obviously North-East Queensland, we're very interested from tomorrow. That southeasterly comes into the Townsville coastline and then starts to butt up against the monsoonal northerly, which is coming southwards. And then she's on like cats and dogs for the rest of the week. All right. Let's have a look. Oh, you're sounding much better, Nitso. Thanks, Cam. Yeah, mate. Look, I've been feeling good. It's just too much talk. It's just been hurting my voice. Fee, hi, Nitso. Hope you're feeling better. I upgraded my membership, but I've been working flat out and just walked in the door and haven't had a chance to look yet. No worries, Fee. Check out some of the modelling. If you upgraded your membership, you'll have access to all the modelling now. So, yeah, check that out. I like the high-res model in these setups, and I also like the AI modelling in these setups because it can sort of delve through the complexity a little bit better than the high-res model, because it can find the details, and then if it's backed up by the AI model, yeah, it's a good solid bet that it's going to happen. All right, so that's what I'd be looking for, mate. Once you've got access to this stuff, it's going to be a really good tool for you to use. By the way, folks, for those of you that are new to us, we are entirely funded by our generous subscribers. So if you'd like to subscribe and get access to all of our forecasts today, what do we do? Eight forecasts today. So make sure you're checking out that link on the top right, weatheriq.com.au/subscribe. Starts at $32.95 a year for all my forecasts, and then there's some extra goodies and stuff that cost a little bit more. But $32.95 gets you all my forecasts every single day of the wet season. What you're getting here is everything the subscribers were told a lot earlier today. All right, let's go through. Brett, Nitso and team, you all do an amazing job. Anyone interested in a subscription, don't hesitate. It's worth every cent. Oh, thanks, Brett. Thanks for your endorsement, man. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for your support. Hey, Melzy. Melzy says, evening, Nitso. Evening, Melzy. Melzy, purchased a pro subscription for Dad a few years ago, as he has an interest in the weather and likes to know what's going on for those in the know. Well worth it. He loves it. Oh, that's awesome. Well done, Melzy. Thank you. I hope your dad's enjoying it and getting a lot of value out of it. What do we got here? Kelvin, there is only one thing to say, Nitso. You're a bloody expert, mate. So glad I joined some years ago. Have no idea how long. Stay safe, folks. Let's hope the one in the Gulf doesn't head out to the Coral. Nah, look, by the way, thanks for your support there, Kelv. No, I don't think it's going to head out to the Coral Sea, mate. What I think what we're probably more looking for is anything new in the Coral Sea that develops over the course of the next 4 or 5 days. While this little messy southeasterly northerlies coming into this section of coast from Townsville up to Cooktown, there's a chance there that we start seeing new rotation in there. I don't think we're going to see the Gulf low getting out in the Coral Sea. If we're going to see something, it's going to be something new in the Coral Sea forming fairly close to the coast. That's what I'm thinking. Scott, Q regarding the Gulf low, when will BOM fix its maps? I'm not sure what you mean, man. Not sure what maps the BOM are issuing. Are the BOM issuing maps on the Gulf low? Let me have a look. Last I checked, they weren't issuing anything, so I don't know. Maybe it's in the warnings. Are they issuing a warning? They've issued a severe weather warning for the Gulf. No, they've cancelled that. Yeah, you can see that 305 mils. Geez, I didn't know that. 305 at Kawanyama. Holy shit, that's a lot. There is I want to notice this though. There is high uncertainty around the movement of the tropical low, so the situation will remain closely monitored. All right, so it's we expect it to move south, but because it's now a lot weaker, there's a lot of merit in what the BOM say there because it is highly uncertain now that it's weaker. Tracy, hi from Paluma. Hey, Tracy, should be in for some good rain at Paluma tomorrow and probably Monday. So you get ready for that. Should be nice. It's in Jasper's position. Yeah, but it doesn't have the strength of Jasper. Moon Jim Munji from YouTube says it's in Jasper's position. It is, mate, but it's nothing like Jasper in terms of intensity. It's not causing that 35 to 40 knot northerly flow and that easterly flow convergence. When I talk about the boaties here, Jumanji, we're talking about a situation here where we're talking between sort of, on the light side 10 knots and on the strong side 20 knots or 25 knots max, right? So the convergence setup here is very different to what you had in Jasper. And Jasper was a proper fair income cyclone, all right? He was a good, strong cyclone, well-structured, and he stayed well-structured all the way through to the Western Cape. So yeah, I get your trepidation, and I get the fact that yes, you are expecting to see some heavy rain up in the Cairns district for sure, but I don't think we can sort of compare it to what you had in Jasper in terms of the intensity of the lift and intensity of everything. So that's where I'd be. That's where I'd be drawing the line with Jasper. Jasper was much stronger, and it was a much more dynamic pattern at that stage, mate. But I've got no doubt you're going to see very heavy rain through the week, absolutely, and it's going to stick around. It moves down to the Townsville, the Ingham area tomorrow, and then. Or tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night, into Monday, into at least the first half of Monday. But then for the rest of the week, it goes right back up to the North Tropical Coast District, and it sits there for basically the whole week. So I've got no doubt there's going to be some big numbers out there in the NTC. Anthony, woohoo, Mr. Muscles. Thanks, Anthony. I've just been to a pool party this afternoon, mate. So yeah, I've had a few what's the names, and had a bit of fun time in the pool. And so I think you all got to do a pool party or play some cricket or do something Aussie. Maybe games at 2 up or something on Australia Day weekend. Triple J Hottest 100. That's a pastime I remember doing from when I was a young fella. I don't understand some of that music these days, but anyway. You can tell I'm getting old. Where are the BOM flood warnings? Oh, look, Richard, I think we're starting from a position of uncertainty. Why? They're probably not going to issue a warning with this much uncertainty. I mean, we didn't see the heavy rain around the Ingham Rolling Stone area coming until probably yesterday, the first sign of that. And the fact that it might extend down to Townsville was only a recent development today. So it's not one of those things, man, that I'd be jumping on the front foot and just issuing cyclone warnings everywhere. Flood warnings everywhere. But maybe a flood watch wouldn't go astray for this northeast region. But then again, I'm not in charge of any of their operational decisions, and I have no idea. Maybe they're just stuck looking at Brisbane or something. I don't know. But I'd be issuing a flood watch for that northeast coastal rivers. I'd be issuing a flood watch for all of the northern interior, and I'd be issuing a flood watch for the Gulf country, at least the northern half of the Gulf country and into parts of Cape York Peninsula, and possibly a severe weather warning for the Cape when we get that big monsoonal surge come through midweek. So that's what I'd be doing if I was in charge of the operational decisions, but I'm not, and someone who's apparently smarter than me might be. But yeah, that's what I would be thinking about doing anyway. So wet in Port Douglas. Yeah, I bet it is. Let's have a look. Let's have a look how wet. We're going to use Weather Watch. Weather Watch have got this really nice thing I like using on their Met Centre, and it's radar rainfall. And you click on Cairns. Yeah, and it tells you how much rain since over the last 24 hours. And over here, I can do this here, show rainfall. And I can see how much rainfall has fallen in the last 24 hours. And so, yeah, there's been quite a bit. Now, the radar-derived rainfall tends to be a little bit over the top there, but it certainly suggests there's been some heavy falls right over Port Douglas and some of the suburbs around. Well, Port Douglas is technically not a city, but you know what I mean, some of the little suburb areas around Port Douglas. 80-something mils there at Bill Creek. Yeah, so there's been some nice rainfall there. We do expect that to drift southwards over the Cairns district, and then we expect it to quickly dip southwards down into the Townsville district once those southeasterlies start to come into the coast. Belinda, Nitso, you're a champion. Thanks for the updates. No worries, Belinda. Thank you for tuning in. Hi, Nitso. Thank you. How's the tablelands looking? Yeah, probably once again, just sort of piggy in the middle, I would say again. Lots of rain on the coast again. Now that this low is washed out a little bit over the Gulf. See, initially when we were looking at the tablelands, we were looking at this deep moist flow coming directly in off the ocean straight into that low, right? So everyone was getting pummeled, but no one was getting huge amounts and everyone was getting pummeled in some degree. Now what we're seeing is a more localised coastal event. Because the low in the Gulf is now over the Cape, and the low in the Cape isn't going to be as strong as the low in the Gulf, the opportunity for convergence isn't going to be quite as robust and strong as it would have been otherwise. So this does limit to some degree how much rain Mareeba might get, Atherton might get, Malander, Herberton might get, right, to some degree. It's not going to limit it completely, so I just want to be clear there. We can see that there's still substantial rainfall over multiple periods over the week, right? So you can see there, multiple periods of the week where the Atherton tablelands are getting significant rain, but not the really heavy stuff that we're expecting on that coast, right? And that's been a change because that low in the Gulf is not as strong. And because the low in the Gulf isn't as strong, it has a chain reaction of flow-on effects. And one of them being that the Atherton tablelands does look like it's going to be somewhere in between the heavy rain over the east and the heavy rain over the west, bit like what it was the last time around. Jojo, do you think Rocky gets it? No, not a chance in hell does Rocky get this, Jojo. Sorry, mate. I don't think we need to deep dive into that. Just the answer's no. Flood watch out now. Oh, beautiful. There you go, Scott. I did see a warning for the Mulgrave Rivers from the bomb. Beautiful. Yep. So they're on the front foot. So good. See, at least we're on the same page. I like that. Maybe I need to put a little love heart. I love bomb on my bicep there, I think. Yeah, beauty. So Fee says that there is a flood watch out there. That's good. That's exactly what I'd expect there to be for this northeast region. Let's have a look. Is it? Yeah, there's a flood watch out for quite a number of river systems. That's perfect. Yep. And that's the perfect area too. That's exactly where we expect the flooding to be over the course of the next week from the Townsville district northwards. And I'd probably be including, is the Daintree included there? I'd hope that the Daintree's included there as well because they're obviously going to get a lot of rain over the next week as well. So, yep, that's great stuff. So it's good to see the bomb on the front foot with this one. All right, folks. No more questions. That's it. I'll leave you there and I'll talk to you in a couple of nights. So in 2 nights' time, we would have seen some good rain in that Ingham, Rolling Stone area, maybe Townsville as well. And in 2 nights' time, we'll be talking about that rain moving northwards up to the Cairns district again. But listen, don't wait 2 nights. Join us. Become a subscriber. We'll let you know what's going on all the time. all the time. $32.95. No surprises, no surprises, no surprises. You know exactly when the rain's coming. You know where the rain's coming. You know how heavy the rain's going to be. All right, $32.95 a year. Support us at weatheriq.com.au/subscribe.